Continuing my journey through the Walking Dead comic series, I just finished the second compendium, which goes from chapters 49 to 96, so obviously this video is going to be filled with spoilers for that segment. This is my first time reading through the series, and it picks up right after the end of the prison arc and the wake of the devastation that happened there. And so many major characters were killed there. Tyrese, Herschel, and most prominently for our protagonist Rick, it was the death of his wife Lori and even their newborn child. And I was legitimately shocked that they actually did kill off the baby as well. I was thinking maybe somebody would show up with her at some point, or somebody got her out of the prison, or maybe she didn't really get shot, but no. The comic actually went there. And by doing so, it takes Rick and Carl into very interesting directions, as they are all that's left of his family and basically now the heart and soul of the story. And this portion of the comic really seemed to ramp up Carl's involvement and his characterization. In the first compendium, Carl was always there, and he was important, but mostly just by proxy of being Rick's son. Here, Carl gets a lot more to do, a lot more screen time, and it's kind of like a coming-of-age tale that's happening here in the midst of the overall story that we're given. I really liked a lot of it, and I liked what they were doing with Carl. I'm really excited to see where he goes moving forward, because I know in the comic he goes on a lot longer than he was in the show, so I'm excited to see it. Carl is forced to defend himself multiple times from zombies by himself, and although he sees his dad as a hero, it's almost as if he feels the need to pick up the slack for the things that Rick cannot do, or the times where Rick is just too physically exhausted to do it. And Rick, during these chapters, Rick Grimes, during these chapters, the breakdown and fall of his sanity was heartbreaking to read, not just for him talking to imaginary voices over the phone, but wanting to be that strength for his son Carl, while at the same time having so much pain and trauma that he has to release somehow in some way, and at times just comes pouring out of him whether he wants it to or not. The father-son themes that are on display here, they really touch me because I see it from both angles, and I'm a sucker for father-son dynamics and stories anyways. I see a son wanting his father to be okay, and a father wanting to be able to teach his son the right thing and provide an example for him, but how exactly do you teach him right and wrong when there is no order to the world, when there's no structure, and in a world where killing is not only acceptable, but also a necessity to survive? And when Rick is torn away from everything, it's that panic survival mode that kicks in within him, that instinctual desire to do whatever it takes to see the next day. There's a scene where a group of thugs threaten to rape Carl, and Rick just bites their throats out and becomes just as animalistic as the zombies themselves. When Rick said his iconic line of "We are the Walking Dead," I think that was the coming full circle point here, which could lead me into another point that I want to make, but it would be getting ahead of myself a little bit, so let me try to talk in order. Rick and Carl do manage to meet back up with other survivors from their group: Andrea, Dale, Glenn, Maggie. Maggie also, who early on here attempts to kill herself by hanging in order to escape this violent world that they're in right now, and she's only salvaged by Glenn and the love that he has for her, and that he sees beyond what she sees for herself and in their potential of the future. She actually doesn't have a lot to do during the second compendium, but the relationship between her and Glenn still is shown to be one of the more positive forces in the entire series. Also, we're introduced to a trio of characters: Abraham, who is just this super tough, badass guy with a handlebar mustache. He's awesome. Alongside him, a beautiful girl named Rosita, who is definitely waifu vibes, and Eugene, who claims to have insight into what caused the zombie outbreak and can help fix it if only they get him to Washington, D.C. in time. And it's funny that we introduce a concept like this now, because after we've already seen so much, and because if this was a plot point early on in the series, I probably would have bought it. But it seems incredibly obvious that this guy is full of shit, and so is his story. One thing about this comic is it's been, I don't necessarily want to say grounded, but it's never been like superheroes on a rescue mission. These characters are flawed, they fly off the handle, stress gets the better of them, and let's face it, they're just a bunch of random Southerners that all got stuck together. A race against time plot to get some kind of super genius scientist over to the Capitol in order to stop the zombie apocalypse from going further just sounds like the plot of a bad action movie and not something that you would see in The Walking Dead. And of course, Eugene is found out to be a liar, but they do make significant effort in order to move themselves north. But not before encountering a bunch of cannibals. Dale gets abducted and gets his fucking legs eaten off. What the fuck? Not to worry, though, because Dale was bitten by a zombie, and so all of them ate tainted meat, which he screams at the top of his lungs as he starts laughing, going into madness. This scene is crazy. Now, I know if you watch the TV series, the cannibal segment is a lot longer. In the comic, it all happens pretty fast, or at least it felt fast, but the same emphasis here is applied with Rick savagely leading the charge against them and hacks them to pieces without any empathy, at least not at the time. It's that moment to show that Rick's group, no matter what they come up against, is a force to be reckoned with, and they're not taking any chances anymore. Which leads into kind of the thing that I want to talk about. Because soon after, Rick and his group are found by a guy named Aaron who takes them to his location, which is a fully barricaded and functioning town. Not like what the governor had, but an actual peaceful society being maintained by a bunch of people who are very good at what they do. They welcome Rick's group in and seem to be exactly what they say they are without any kind of deception. The only suspicious part is they want them to take their weapons as soon as they come in because they don't allow weapons within the town themselves. Now, they can still go get their weapons if they want to, but it's when they're leaving the town or in case of emergencies. So it's a little suspicious, but makes sense if you're trying to maintain a peaceful society, I suppose. They basically want Rick to do his job again. They want him to be a police officer, and they give all the others in his group jobs as well. But the way this goes down is incredibly interesting because now you have Rick, who has had to sink to his lowest points of savagery just to survive, who has had his hand hacked off, had to bite a man's throat out, he had to kill cannibals, and all of these things just to be thrown back into society like nothing ever happened. And so Rick begins to view everything here with a suspicious lens and makes things seem more dangerous than they actually are, and also views the people here as being extremely weak because they haven't gone through the same experiences, that they don't understand, or maybe they don't even deserve to be living the way that they're living. He conducts a mission with Glenn in order to steal their weapons back in the middle of the night, and he also takes it upon himself to interrogate a man who he thinks is beating his child. And there's this one line I love where he says, "If they ever try to make us leave this place, we'll just take it from them." And this is a direction that I wish the comic would have doubled down on harder. I get why they didn't, but I love the idea that our group and Rick essentially becoming antagonists right under our noses, that the shift would be so gradual, and by going on their heartbreaking journeys, we would be on their side the entire time and continue to justify all of their actions because we understand them as characters. I think it would have been so wild if the story shifted, and from an outside perspective, Rick does infiltrate the town. He does tear down its power system and completely takes it over. And he kind of does that, but I wonder how long the comic would have pushed this before we, as the reader, realized that Rick was the bad guy now. It plays with these ideas, but it doesn't go all the way with it. And I'm not saying the comic made the wrong choice in the long run. It makes more sense, especially with the Negan storyline coming up and all that, but man, do I love the idea of turning a protagonist into a villain without the reader even realizing it before it's too late. And if I didn't already know about the Negan character and that he was going to show up eventually, that is the direction I would have thought the comic was going to go in, and that's what I would have really, really hoped for, but it's okay. If I want a series like that, I got Breaking Bad, I got Attack on Titan. I'm just saying, I thought it would have been interesting. Although Rick does go off the deep end plenty of times here, but eventually he settles into his role and proves to be somebody that the town needs, even if not everybody respects him at first. Eventually, a huge herd of zombies, and if you want to think about how dark Rick's character can be, well, he ends up confronting the man that was beating his wife. That guy goes off the deep end, and in retaliation, Rick has to kill him. Then, Rick starts sleeping with that guy's wife. Then, during the herd invasion, Rick cuts off that girl's hand so that she would let go of Carl, basically sacrificing her to the herd in order to save Carl's life, only for Carl to immediately get shot in the face right afterwards. And considering the series' track record of killing characters, they could have killed Carl here, but I'm really glad they didn't. This moment kind of grounds Rick once more in a way. It allows him to open up about his feelings of leadership and the example that he wants to set for Carl, how he wants to make the world better for Carl, that he wants to be that shining light, that he wants to be that example, that he wants to show that it's possible. And all of the regrets of his actions just kind of come pouring out to Andrea. Andrea does try to get with him, but Rick turns her down. I think it's a dynamic that could have worked, but yeah, I don't know. I'll see where it goes in the future of the comics, since that's not something that happens in the show. But Rick thinks about training all of the citizens here. He recognizes that the zombies themselves can be managed, and it's other people that have always been the real danger. He has a good crew of fighters with him. He has himself, Abraham, Michonne, Andrea, and more of the people here could be taught how to defend themselves. And it's almost the cruelest irony ever that just as Rick has this revelation of hope and has these grounding of emotions, some fucker named Jesus shows up and introduces the concept of multiple establishments and multiple towns that exist beyond their own. Now, as the second compendium begins to wrap up, this other town and the Jesus guy mention that they are under the rule and under the thumb of another group called the Saviors, led by a guy named Negan. And Negan, of course, is perhaps the most popular villain in the entire comic. I don't get to his introduction by the end of the second compendium, but the comic is building him up by establishing the lore around him and the town's fear of him, and responding with Rick's overconfidence, saying that they'll get rid of the Saviors for them, believing themselves and their experiences thus far to give them the abilities needed to take them out fairly easily and make a deal with this new town in order to share resources between the two of them. They just have to get the Saviors out of the picture. Now, I know because of the TV show the impact Negan will have on the series, and I also know that after his introduction in the show's quality goes down on a massive spiral. So I really hope that that's not the case with the comic, because I really like where things are going right now, and I just hope that it doesn't jump the shark with the Negan introduction. But that's yet to be seen until I read the third compendium. But regardless, the second compendium here of the series was a great showcase of expanding the characterization of Rick and the other characters too, while also working on the world building and introducing more survivors and establishments that exist. I like turning Rick into this ferocious, need to survive kind of person, and then just tossing him back into society and seeing how he deals with it. I love the father-son dynamics between him and Carl, and I don't mind the story kind of swaying away from zombies being the biggest threat, because I think it's always kind of been that way. The zombies are just zombies. They just want to eat you. They're pretty simple. They don't have the conflicting ideals and motivations and complicated personas that humans have. Humans have always been the main villain, and that's kind of true with a lot of zombie media and a lot of zombie lore, and zombie stories have always kind of been allegories for things that are happening in our real world. Humans have all the ego, they have all the pain, all the desires, and everything that can lead to both hope or devastation. Anyways, guys, if you're a Walking Dead fan or have read the second compendium, what are your thoughts on this portion of the story specifically? Let me know all that down below in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Also, don't forget to subscribe while you're here. I do lots of reviews of lots of different things if you're interested in that, or if you don't want to, that's cool too. Just give it a like and a comment maybe to help it out in the algorithm. I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I have Patreon, channel memberships, merch store, all that linked down below, along with the various social media links where you can follow me. And thanks a lot for watching this video, guys. I got a lot of good responses on the first Walking Dead video, so I'm going to be reviewing them in the compendiums. Obviously, the compendiums are about like 45 chapters a piece, so it takes me a while to read through, but I will get through all of it eventually, so I hope you come with me on the journey. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.